Hey, Alex and Amy. Just following up on Alex's last email about keyword research. I'll say kind of right away, this is probably the weakest part of my SEO foo. I'm not terrible at it, and I've done okay, but I'm also not really sophisticated with the work that I do, which I think is good for other people who are kind of at the beginning. You don't have to go get all these SEMrush and Ahrefs and all these fancy tools. If you just do what I'm going to do, I think it's not very sophisticated, but I do think it works. So I'm actually going to go through this kind of in real time. I opened up some tabs to make it easier, but I thought about sort of scripting this and like giving you the highlights at the end, but I think it might be more informative to see actual keyword research and kind of how I would do it for this article. So the one thing I did to prep before I started was actually read the article, which is pretty good, obviously. I'll say also this is a pretty challenging article because it's based around this idea of careers for makers, and maker is a pretty sort of amorphous term. I think not to you and me, but to everybody. And so the trick is, is maker even a term that people would search for? So I think the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in this here and just think about keyword research a little bit and what alternatives to like the word maker might be. And I think it might be like creatives or creative professionals, that kind of thing. So I think that's the kind of thing that I'll look at, and then you're also talking about careers, consulting, and things like that. So really what I'm looking for when I do keyword research is not sort of a whole bunch of keywords. I'm looking for maybe one phrase that I think might be useful for identifying what this article is and what people were searching for. That's really the question I'm trying to answer, is what are people searching for when they're searching for the thing that I wrote about in this article? That's ultimately what you're trying to figure out. And so rather than how do I describe this article or what's a one-sentence summary of this article, instead I'm saying if somebody was looking for the content that I've written about here on Google, what would they type into Google to find it? So that's why the word maker is challenging. Is I know that we use the word maker a lot. I see the word maker used a lot sort of as a term of art for like creative entrepreneurs who make stuff, but I don't know if makers self-identify in that way, so that if that person that we would describe as a maker was actually on Google, that they themselves would perceive themselves to be a maker, in quotes there, and Google that. So this is a pretty big challenge. I think there are a lot of articles you could have sent that would have been like how to blah blah blah, and it would have been a lot easier. So we'll see kind of what comes out here. First, I'll kind of walk you through what I would do in Google Analytics. The first thing I would do is look for what kind of traffic do we have coming from here. I'm just curious. So this is for Stacking the Bricks. I'm going to look at the last 30 days. Going to see just basically if there's any traffic coming to this particular page and what it looks like. I think I've already got the slug on the clipboard. Yeah. So we're just going to see. Yeah, so 24 visits in the last 30 days. Pretty high bounce rate, 91%. That's not like a horrendous bounce rate, but it's pretty high. You want to see something 80% or lower, I think, for kind of an established page that aligns well with what people are searching for. So right away, kind of my summary of what I see here is not a whole lot of traffic right now from Google, which of course is why I'm making this video about this page. And when people find it, they spend about a minute on the page, which is decent, and it's a pretty high bounce rate, which means that basically what it means is that people do find it in Google, and when they find it, they leave immediately instead of kind of clicking through to other stuff. There could be a lot of reasons for that. One of them is that the article itself may not align with what they were searching for. That's probably the easiest explanation for that. But it could also be there aren't places for them to go from within the article, so there aren't internal links to other articles. There's not a up next link anywhere. There's not an obvious opt-in. Kind of ironically, the better that your opt-in rate gets, whatever the goal is that you have for this page, the better the bounce rate gets and the pages per session get and the average session duration get, because you're redirecting them to like a thank you page, like I mentioned in my email. And so that tells Google, when people come here, they interact, they stick around, they go to at least one more page. So there's a lot of sort of I don't know what the word is, but little things that you can do that sort of build on each other that make this page more attractive to people. So the summary is not a lot of traffic to this page. People bounce when they get there, so maybe there's some work to be done to make it align better with what people are searching for, which is kind of what we're doing here. So now I'm going to go into Google Search Console. I'm going to look at that page and see if we can get any information on what those clicks are for. Good. So I'm going to look at the queries, and I like to look at all this stats and just see what we got. Okay, so that's interesting. Not a huge sample size here, but most of the impressions that you're getting and most of the clicks that you're getting are for the term jobs for makers or best jobs for makers. So somebody's searching for that, and maybe I don't know your market as well as you do, which is not a surprise to anybody. The issue is that there's not a lot. Even if you kind of maximize this, you're already kind of on the first page. These positions 6 and 1.6, basically you're pretty close to high on the first page for these two terms. And being high and having a good click-through rate, which those are, only gets you 11 clicks. So this is a case where, yes, people are searching for this. However, if you want a lot of traffic, it's worth taking some time to see if there are other things that people are thinking about or searching for that aren't, these maker phrases. So with that, I think that sort of confirms that when people actually are using the term of art that you're using, they will find this page and they will click through and they will read it. Even when they do that, they tend to bounce. I might go to the page itself and see if I can kind of figure out why they're bouncing. But let's see if we can find some keywords that are good for this page. Again, I haven't scripted this. I haven't done any prep for it. I'm just kind of showing you real time what I would do if this was my site. So I'm not sure I'm going to find anything. But maybe you can use this process with your knowledge of your audience, which I think one of your superpowers over at Stacking the Bricks is understanding how people think, collecting their words through Sales Safari. And so you might have a better sense of, as I'm doing this, like you're yelling at your screen, why aren't you doing keyword research on this phrase? And maybe that's a phrase that you would pop in here and you would come up with some better stuff. So I'm going into Keyword Planner now. I just Googled AdWords Keyword Planner because I can never remember how to get to it. You have to have an AdWords account, I think, to do this, which is free to set up. And you can see the little red label that I've gotten here for years is none of your ad groups are running because I don't pay for AdWords. You click on this little wrench icon and go to Keyword Planner, and then you're in the Keyword Planner. So the first thing that I'll do here, and I'm not like a power user of this, but like careers for makers. Let's start here and just see what comes out. See if anything comes out. Okay, so careers for makers is very low. So average monthly searches, unfortunately, this tool used to give you more specific data, but now it just gives you sort of tranches here. So I'm going to sort by average monthly searches. And you can see that there are a few kind of high traffic terms. Just a general kind of overview of what I'm looking for here. Typically what I want to find is, am I seeing any terms that are in this 1K to 10K range of average monthly searches that I think this article is described by? So far I'm not seeing very much. Best careers is one, but that's too general. Machinist jobs. Looks like maker and machinist are somehow synonymous or related. I'm not seeing a whole lot here. So I didn't expect to see much there, but what you're looking for is 1K to 10K. You want medium competition. High competition usually means it's tough. If you can rank for it, then that's good. But for example, in this case, like Maker's Mark Bourbon, you'd have a really hard time getting to #1 there because Maker's Mark Bourbon itself is probably going to get there. And you can see some signals here that this is a pretty high competitive, high competition keyword, or the price for the bid to get ads run for this. So you can see up here, jobs that pay well near me. That's one that you might actually target because it's got a good 1K to 10K a month. This is, by the way, the search volume that I would target kind of early on in my SEO days. Is I think I can rank for this because there's enough search there that if I do rank for it, I'll get clicks. But it's medium competition. It's cheap to advertise there, and so that's one I'd say, you know what, I think I can probably rank there. This did not yield very much, so I'm going to go back to my research that I did and see. But let's try. Let's see what career for creative gives us here. We're going to do the same thing. We're looking for, 1K to 10K, art careers, fun careers. Design careers, jobs for creative people. That is interesting. That might be one that's worth targeting. It also happens to confirm my biases. I'm just scanning here. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to take jobs for creative people. I think that's one that could work. It's got traffic, it's low competition, so you can easily rank for it. There's enough searching going on for that phrase that I think you can get there if you tweak this. So now let's talk about, let's assume that we're going to target jobs for creative people. What would you do? So the first thing that you would want to do is actually Google that term. So I'm Googling jobs for creative people. And we're going to see what kind of stuff shows up here. BLS report, Business Insider, 10 types of creative careers. Creative people jobs. This looks pretty good to me. It doesn't have the fun maker term, but like I was saying earlier, I don't think a lot of people, jobs for creative types, jobs for creative thinkers. Now, I know that the article itself is not really about that. It's sort of, I just read it and I can't really quite remember, but I think it was sort of about, Amy said that she didn't like consulting. She realized that and she went on to do something else. I don't know that it really prescribes much, so I still think this would align pretty well. So one thing that I would do is first just kind of take these terms and try to swipe them. It's going to be really hard to do this, but I'm going to try and just copy paste this back into my little doc. And now we have some other phrases. I think these are the two here that are interesting, and basically the reason they matter is you might want to fold these into the title. So now I think we've got a phrase, jobs for creative people, okay, let's try one more because your article, I'm going to go back to it here. Best career for a maker is, let's try careers and just see what comes out of careers for creative jobs. So these are basically the same search results, I think. They look very, very familiar. Just reading these. Jobs for creative types, that's interesting. So I'm going to swipe these two. So there might be some phrases here. So these related searches that Google shows you are usually ones that I will try to fold into an article if I'm writing an article. So I think you've got a good set of phrases here. I think you should target jobs for creative people. I think creative types, creative thinkers, these are phrases that you might roll into the article itself. This is what you would target in the article, jobs for creative people. So I would go back here now, and the first thing I would say is, I think I might have mentioned this in my email, but you can differentiate between the title and the headline or the H1 for an article. So most of the time, especially if you're using WordPress, which I think you're on Nanoc or however you say that, a static site builder, most of the time WordPress will just kind of do that by default, and I think it's kind of hard to unwind on some themes, but you can control this, and I think Thomas is actually the one who kind of built this out from what I remember seeing on Twitter, and you could differentiate between title and H1, which is, that's what I do on my site, is I have a title, which basically for me that means this is the thing I want to show up in Google, and then your H1 is, what might show up on the page. So you may not even mess with this, this headline. but instead might just add a title that's specifically for Google to get clicks. So if we're starting with this, best career for makers is, then what I want to know is, what could we write that looks more like jobs for creative people? So the easy thing to do here would be just the best jobs for creative people are, right? So that's kind of a direct ripoff of what you had, but for jobs for creative people instead of career for a maker. I would probably massage this a little bit because you've got more characters to work with on Google. By the way, let's see if you rank for that. You do. Okay, so the nice thing is you are ranking #1 here. The bad news is you're just not getting clicks on it right now. Yeah, I think I might try the best career for a maker is, and now I'm looking for what else could we do here, because you can see you've got some characters to work with. There's another tool here, the Moz title tool, that will kind of help you see like how well is this going to render and how much room do you have to work with. I like to try and get the most out of the title. You want to front load it with stuff, so you've got a ton of room here. You're using about half the space that you could use. So we can look at some of these other things that people are searching for. Best career. So we'll start with the best jobs for creative people are. See how much room we have. We have a little bit of room there. What else can we work in here? Sorry for the silence. I'm just kind of trying to turn this over. Like I said, this is a pretty challenging one. I don't know. I might punt on this. I think my guess is you're waiting for me to stop doing this so you could just create your own. But I think this is a good seed for a title. The best jobs for creative people are. I might add a little bit to that. I don't know if this technique, this ellipsis technique, works well on Google. In general, Google people will click through more because they see something that's really interesting to them. You could actually something like this. Ooh. So if I were to ship something, like let's say I was on the clock and I had to ship something after like a 10-minute video, this is probably what I would ship. The best jobs for creative people and makers are. That gets your maker term in there. It means you don't have to mess with the article too much. You might want to go back into the article. So the next thing you would want to do is make sure you have the term creative people, creative thinker, creative types, like basically these 3 terms. They would be in the article somewhere. So I think your title, this is your title. Your headline might just be this up to the ellipsis. The title is good. People just tend to click on stuff they think is more current. Google will rank it better if it feels like it's been updated recently, especially if you update the sitemap to say that it was recently updated. And so that's just sort of a current SEO hacky thing. I don't love it, but especially since you're actually going to update it probably and make some tweaks, I think it's fine. You would want to update the article itself. Maybe change the headline here to be more focused on the creative type stuff. You might add creative types or creative careers. Make sure that you sprinkle in, make sure that the article is about creative people, creative types, creative thinkers, and careers for them, or jobs, actually. So you might want to change this to job. Or I think careers seem to have some traffic as well. I would definitely kind of tweak this article so that you mention that. One thing, and this is, I hesitate to even say this because I know Amy has a style of writing, and this is, I think, pulled from an email, if I saw the footer correctly. Yeah, my next few emails. So this is probably just a port from an email sequence. But above the fold type stuff below the headline matters. And right now, if Google crawls this page, all it sees is a lot of white space and a headline. There's nothing above the fold here. And then when you do get below the fold, you get this graphic, and then below that you get text. And this is sort of a preamble to the thing that comes later. So if you really care about SEO, I think that there are some site design things that you might want to change. You might want to bring this way up, like, and I know that it'll kind of do this as you scroll, but Google isn't, I don't think Google will scroll. So this is what Google sees. This is what, most readers will see, right? So we move the fold up. You might want to collapse some of this white space, turn this into like a sticky nav bar or something out of the gate. I don't know. I hesitate to tell you how to design your site. I'm not very good at that. But this giant graphic definitely pushes the fold down. I think it's nice to have an image, but I might want to pull text above the fold because that's what people are looking for, and that might be, back to the bounce rate, that might be why people are bouncing here, is they get here and they click through. It's not exactly clear what the article is going to be about, especially if they don't identify with the term maker. They start scrolling and see a giant picture. I still don't have any text. And then there's a preamble. And so it takes them a while to kind of get into it and say, this is for me. And by the time they do, usually they just go up here and they hit back. I think I first heard that from Patrick, that you're fighting against the back button. So you might want to think about, like, how can I structure this article to be stickier for people who find it? So how do they self-identify as, yes, this article is for me? How do you immediately signal to them that this article is useful for them? It takes a while for me to scroll and stuff, and people are really lazy. I don't know what this looks like in mobile. Let's see. Same kind of thing is going on in mobile here. People are just lazy and they don't scroll very much. So most of the time I just have text kind of butted right up against the top here. So those are some structural things that you could do. You could have some internal links to other articles that you've written here. I know that you're doing a guides type of thing, but even if there are places in here where you could link to other ideas that you're talking about or that you have talked about, if the next few emails are actually articles that are written on the site, you could have, like, click here to see the next entry or something, and that would be another kind of next up thing. And those are the changes that I would make here. So to recap, I think this is a good title that would get people to click more for SEO purposes. It might get you to rank better. And the best jobs for creative people is an actual kind of head term that you could target. And something I didn't say is you also want to make sure you have an explicit blurb. So let me go back to this. Yeah. So this, I think it's called the meta description. It's similar to like meta title. It's a meta thing that Google will either pull what you have, or it will find something in the article and pull it itself. I think it's just pulling the beginning of the article here, if you're like me. Yep. So it's just pulling the beginning of the article. So you can actually write this, and usually this blurb you want to tell people what they're going to get from the article. So it's a you-focused little sentence or two. You have a little bit more room for this than you're using here, or that's being used by Google, that says this is why you should read this article. So I don't think I need to say any more than that. For y'all, it's a you-focused description of what the article will give the person when they read it, so that they're compelled to read it. You want to use some emotional words, try and scratch the pain itch that they might have, or agitate it a little bit, so that they'll click and read. And then once they click, you want them to click and stay. I think I also mentioned, like, I would get rid of this prepending stacking the bricks thing because it's right here. Also, you might want to kill dates, especially if you're going to say 2018 edition, or at least update this date if you can. I don't. If you Google the stuff that I have for Fearless Salary Negotiation, you'll see that I don't have dates on stuff. So I'm here, and there's no date, and it's, see how there's like a nice long blurb, 2018. So I don't have Fearless Salary Negotiation written there because it's right here. I have a longer blurb that I wrote out, and this has been it gets pretty good clicks. I just need to rank better for it. Okay, I think I'm kind of rambling now. So I would change your title to this title here. I would update the little blurb, the meta description. Again, you're using a static site, so you can pretty trivially kind of code up a couple of lines that'll pop that in there if you add it to like your front matter. I would make sure you have best jobs for creative people, creative types in the article itself. Sprinkle that in there. And if you want to go deeper and mess with the structure of it, I might actually change the way these pages look on the site and what's being crawled, because it takes a long time to get below the fold, and that means Google's not going to rank it as high. It means people are going to bounce when they get there because they're lazy and they don't scroll. So you want to make sure that, you know, from top of funnel down, they Google best jobs for creative people. They see this title, 2018 update. That's great. It's got a good description that says, here's why you need to click this article. They click it, they get to it, and they see immediately, you know, a headline that may be different than the title, but it says, this is what I'm here. You know, I'm in the right place. I got the right thing. They can immediately start reading stuff, and they don't have to scroll. And the stuff that they start reading has maybe an intro that's more tightly coupled with what they Googled, best career for makers. And even if it's just enough of a paragraph or two that's above the fold that has some keywords in it that tells them you're in the right place if you're looking for career ideas for maker, or jobs for makers, or jobs for creative people, this is for you. Here's how you think about that, and I'll walk you through it. Then I think you might increase the stickiness of the page, and people would stick around. All that stuff kind of works together over time to make Google rank it higher. Google says, yes, this is more tightly aligned with these keywords. It's got the keywords in it. The text is above the fold, and so I'll rank it well. When people search for it, they see it, they click on it, they stick around, they don't bounce. And so all those things tell Google you should rank it higher, and that's how you get more traffic to something over time. Then when you start getting that traffic, you can go back into the Search Console and you can start optimizing for that traffic. So you might see that people are clicking best career, or best jobs for creative types, or whatever it is, and you can start doubling down on that and kind of start tailoring the article to speak more to that thing that they're searching for, which will help you rank higher and have a stickier page. Okay, I hope this helps. Let me know if this is useful. I just don't know if it is or not, but this is the process that I use, and it's what I would have done if this were my page. Good luck.